preparation that Mike Twitty and Tom Green have done about the impacts of each of the relevant property taxes. That is specifically in front of you, the impacts of HJR 203, which would be a 10-year phase out of property taxes. So I just wanted you all to have that document, since that's the bill that the House is going to be voting on today. And we can go through the bill tracker with any questions that you all have. But the other thing that I wanted to point out on the appropriations tracker was just the updates as far as our projects. So in the first round of opening salvo, I guess you can say, there was $1 million for the Denver street storm water drainage improvements in the budget, and $1.25 million for the Mahaffey Theater renovations in the budget. And then our senators did work to get additional amendments passed yesterday to include $500,000 for the Childs Park storm drainage improvements, which would fully fund that project. And you'll see that it's listed as $350,000 for the PD K-9 facility. And Laura, just make sure I'm correct. $350,000 is the minimum that an appropriation can be. And so to begin the amendment, excuse me. And so to begin the negotiation process, we have to get $350 in, but we can work from there.
Yeah, there were many amendments filed yesterday, and if you would look through them, the majority of them were filed at $350.
Yeah.
We were just able to get Childs Park fully funded at $500.
At that one. So we'll continue to work to increase all of the appropriations to the requested amount, but just so you understand that specific nuance of that. So, and then as it relates to the bill tracker, I'll kind of follow you all's direction if there's any specific pieces of legislation that you all are following and want to ask questions.
One I should have brought up, but I didn't, it's sovereign immunity. I know that's something important to us. The House has passed their version over to the Senate. Theirs goes $500 million. And then the Senate is in rules. Their version is sitting in rules right now, and theirs just goes 300, 400, from 200, 300. So that would have to be negotiated, at some point before the end of session, or it'll just die. So I'll keep you all obviously posted.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right, committee members. Committee member Fick Sanders.
Quick question, and I apologize for dropping in late. But when you said the $350,000 is a minimum, is that mean that there's going to be a change to the cemetery?
No.
Okay,
If you want to file a budget amendment in the Senate,
that's the minimum.
The minimum amount that you can request is $350.
Okay.
So you can't ask for like a $50,000 amendment or a $100,000 amendment.
Okay.
You have to get at least $350,000.
Okay, I just needed clarification on that. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, very good. Council Chair Hanowitz.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for the update. So let's talk a little bit about the property taxes and where we're at. So for our constituents to kind of understand, I assume that this sheet with the information of the impact that we would face under the House version that is currently moving forward has been provided to all our House reps and everyone involved, right?
Yes, and so, if you don't mind,
yes.
So what the property appraiser did, and we have a link to it on the city website, is you can see what the actual impact for every given municipality within Pinellas County. You can see how each bill impacts that. And so as part of the CAL presentation last week, Administrator Green put together a kind of a spreadsheet of these, and so people can actually see it, but specifically the one being voted on in the House is this HJR 203.
Right.
Yes, but we've shared that each time we've been to Tallahassee.
Right. And in terms of right now, nothing happens to be what they're thinking about, what that hit is, which is 19B, what they're thinking about, what that hit is, which is 19 million, and knowing where we are with our ad valorem revenue and what it actually covers in public safety, it would show exactly what would be affected. And so, whether it's this in the House version, which is insane, and then the Senate version, which is not as insane, but still not great considering that all our real estate property taxes collected does not cover all of public safety, given the fact that we take money for our TIF.
Yep.
So I think that's just important, just so we can articulate that to our residents, one way or the other. I don't care which way it is. There is an issue and there is a gap. I would assume that there is no conversation as how that gap is going to be filled as of now still.
And I would say, and we kind of talked when we were up there, I think that's part of why the Senate has not released the proposal, because they're actually trying to have an answer for if we take this, what happens. And I think this is a big concern for the Senate president, who represents several of the lowest budget counties, many of whom only have property. They don't have any commercial properties to generate revenue. It really is reliant on homesteaded properties. And there are several counties, truthfully, you do a $50,000 increase to the homestead exemption, you could almost entirely wipe out their budget. So there's a very serious conversation, I would say, happening on the Senate, and that's part of why the proposal hasn't come out.
Right.
And the Senate president did put money in the Senate budget for those fiscally constrained counties to assist with whatever this property tax exemption looks like.
So they're putting money into the budget to assist those counties from where?
Where, what?
From other counties, I guess.
No, it's general revenue.
From the general revenue that's coming, yeah, but I assume that there's smaller places, it's gonna have to be filled
They're
from
fiscally
other
constrained.
areas, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay, okay. So, I think the message is, at least for the residents that are following this, to understand that no matter what the scenario is, it still doesn't bode well, even for our city that is not fiscally constrained as other smaller communities that are going to be just completely gutted by any of these new ideas that they have up there. So, okay. Well, keep us posted on it. And if we can definitely have some numbers on what the homestead exemptions could look like for us, that way we can start articulating. Because I'm going to meetings and they're asking me, I have one next week, and they're going to ask, well, what's the Senate doing? Well, they're thinking about homestead exemption, and maybe if it's 50,000, this is what the impact is anyhow. So it's no better, and having that understanding. And I see Tom joined us back there, and maybe Tom has some answers here.
Hi, Tom.
Good morning. Thank you for just a moment. Yes, and as Mr. Clark indicated, because there isn't a specific proposal out yet, we've run the numbers, and I can share with the committee and follow up via email. But effectively, we have about 3.1 billion of additional exemption that would be reduced from our tax base, and that would equate to, like Mr. Thompson said, about $19 million. Now, that is the most conservative, meaning that's higher than it would likely be, just because there are some properties on our tax base right now that are less than $50,000, so they would not get the full benefit. So that additional exemption likely would not equate to the additional 3.1 billion, but that's kind of the working number that we have.
Okay. So when we talk about 50,000 increase to homestead exemption, that sounds about the area that they're looking at, the number that they're looking at?
That's the number we've heard, yeah.
That's the number you've heard. Okay. Okay. I appreciate you coming
No
down
problem.
for this. Thank you, Chair.
All right, great. Any other council members or committee members? No? Okay, so I just want to make sure, again, on the property tax conversation, the House is moving theirs forward today. The Senate is still just talking about something. It's my understanding, and I think I asked this last time, but I just want to clarify that in order for something to make it to the ballot, they have to agree on identical language still, right? Do we see a world in which that does not happen by the end of session and the governor calls another special session just for this issue?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's my, I guess, kind of my concern, is that this isn't over just because session ends. Like, nobody should be taking, like, a sigh of relief. This will continue, I think, to be a threat, because is their timing similar to like our timing for having to have referendum language? So they could really debate this out until May, June, and still realistically get something on the ballot. Okay. So I think that's just, to your point with educating our residents that just because session ends doesn't mean the danger is done, and we have to continue to educate people on this. I mean, listen, they want to complain about all of this increased revenue that the cities have collected. Well, a lot of that has come from the increase in real estate sales. And if they really wanted to fix the problem, they would fix the equation of how they actually assess upon new purchase. To assess and start that number at 85% of a total home sale is absolutely ridiculous. And that's why people see these huge jumps when they go from buying a property that somebody owned for 20, 25 years to being the new owner under the new pricing, and now you're getting that full boat. That would be the easiest thing they could do to fix it.
Right.
So I know they're not listening. They haven't been listening. I wish they would listen, because these are the kind of solutions that could actually help with the affordability crisis that has happened, and quite frankly would restrict all of this additional income that we have been able to collect. So, that's just kind of logic speaking, and I know that they don't always use logic in Tallahassee. So I'll get off my soapbox about that. My other question, and this is it's not really a question, it's just a position. So, I'm very glad to see that this Child's Park storm drainage improvement is on the Senate for the $500,000, and that is a fully funded, because it was a requested amount.
Yes.
In briefings that I know I had, and I'm sure all of the city council members had, on the CDBG dollars that we are looking at, and we have this $25 million, and we've kind of narrowed it down to these two projects, both very worthwhile projects, absolutely projects that popped up in conversations through the Resilient St. Pete tours. The Clam Bayou Tidal Protection Gate project, $26.5 million. It's a little bit over the $25 million that we have, but that area that is affected butts up to this area with these drainage improvements. So I just wanted to throw that out there for administration's consideration, that as we are weighing these two projects against each other, if we are going to already be getting benefit in a specific area from one project that could be funded through the state and through other ways, I would like us to consider that as part of that selection matrix when we eventually choose these projects. Because the more that we can layer these projects on top of each other, the more impact that we get.
Absolutely.
So I am very happy to see that number there, but just want to kind of look at that future of how do we really make that project as impactful as possible with other resources that we have.
Absolutely.
Okay. The last thing I'm going to say is I'm just very dismayed that the Flood Mitigation Industry Association CREST training did not end up in the budget. I want to thank Senator DeSigley for seeing the vision with that project. We'll continue to beat that drum and try to get that, potentially funded in future. But a very worthwhile project, and I know that, all the work that we've done through St. Pete Works, they were certainly ready and willing to move that curriculum forward. So we just got to continue to look for other opportunities to fund those kind of programs. And so just showing a little disappointment in that one, but we'll continue to work on that. Anything else for Tallahassee? Council members or committee members? No? Okay. All right. Well, Laura and John, thank you so much for continuing to be such good stewards for the city of St. Petersburg. We certainly would not have any of these successes that we have without you partnering so well with administration and with David and Doyle to make change for St. Petersburg as much as we possibly can. So thank you for everything that you both do. And thanks for being with us today. It's always good to see you. All right, we are going to move on now. So we have our current status in Washington, D.C. And so with us today on Zoom is Rob Diamond, our Capitol Counsel LLC. He is here to share with us what is happening in D.C. Please don't touch on, the catastrophe in the Potomac, because that's absolutely horrific and doesn't obviously have anything to do with what they do in D.C., but certainly we're thinking of all of you with that disaster that you're dealing with.
Good morning, everybody, and that's a dirty job.
Yeah, we're going to turn you up just a little bit in the room. Hold on one second for us.
All right, go ahead and speak again, Rob.
Hey, sorry, can you
Yes,
hear me okay?
perfect. Good.
I was just saying good morning, and that was certainly a dirty job there with Atomic River, so I don't envy the work that needs to be done there. But great to be with everybody again. I'll start my update on the appropriations side since we last met. The good news is that Congress has passed 11 of the 12 federal appropriations bills for FY26. For the first time in nearly 2 years, we're operating under full year budgets for those agencies there, and have come to the end of the continuing resolutions that I've been briefing you on almost ad nauseum. However, the bad news is, as I think you're well aware, they have not funded the Department of Homeland Security appropriations for FY26. That is a big fight, a huge fight in Washington right now over reforms being demanded by Democrats to immigration and customs enforcement actions around the country, and really no sign of a breakthrough on that. We're now in day 6 of that shutdown at DHS, and Congress is actually recessed this week, so they're not even talking. There have been Democratic proposals submitted, but no formal reaction from GOP leadership at the White House. So this will, I think, continue on for some time. The impacts here to us are real. One, we have 2 of our congressionally directed spending requests in those bills, so we are tracking this very carefully and very closely as it comes to resolution. And also it affects the entire Department of Homeland Security, and so I know many of you care quite a bit about Coast Guard presence in the region. This affects FEMA, this affects TSA, so this will continue to have tangible real-world impacts as it moves forward. And like I said, we're monitoring it very closely, but they are very far apart right now and don't have any real line of sight on resolution. That being said, with the other 11 appropriations bills being passed, we are right back into the congressionally directed spending submission window for FY27. I know David and I are tracking it very closely. Some member offices have started to publish their timelines and due dates, but there has not actually been official guidance published from the appropriations committees yet. But do use this as a moment to encourage, again, the great dialogue that we've had over the last few years and coming to a joint plan on submission between our different delegation offices on those really important funding submissions. So that will be here, it really is right here around the corner. A couple other notes. President will be delivering the State of the Union address on Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. I think an important marker to see where his administration will be headed over the next few months, particularly into the midterm election cycle that we'll see in November. Still quite a bit of chatter in Washington around whether or not there could be a reconciliation 2.0 bill with a potential focus on healthcare. Nothing solid, no sort of legislative text or anything like that, no direction to share, but certainly a lot of conversation around it. The Republican majorities would be able to do a second bill because we are into a new budget year now, and the rules allow them to pursue that if they wanted to. I do want to circle back to, because we do have these appropriations in place now, most of the government, I expect this to be a different year on the grant front. Obviously, last year was a very chaotic and disruptive year with freezes in place across the board due to presidential executive orders, spending rescissions, agency downsizing. You're all familiar with that as we've discussed in previous hearings. But that situation has I think, stabilized in terms of where the agencies are, and now that they have full year budget, most of them, again, have full year budget appropriations, we should really start to see those funding opportunities and FOAs and no-FOAs, for those of us who love to speak in DC acronym talk, starting to move again. We'll be watching that closely and continuing to work with the mayor's team and the great efforts they do to coordinate on the discretionary grant side. But I do think we'll start to see a different environment there in the months ahead. Lastly, I just want to touch on the House margin. We're currently at a 218 to 214 margin in the House, representing 3 vacancies due to the recent death of a member in California and some of the resignations post-election day. That means that the House majority needs 432 votes, giving only a 1 vote margin in the House right now. So just adding an entirely another layer of complication, in what has been a fractious GOP majority caucus for quite some time, and could really also result in gumming up the works even further on anything that comes before the House that's controversial in any nature. So I just want to point out that it has been slim since the beginning of last year, and it is even slimmer now. Unclear when those vacancies will be filled to take it back up to 435. But with that, I'll stop there. Look forward to your questions as always.
All right, thank you for the update. Councilmember Driscoll.
Thank you, and thank you, Rob. Can you tell us, can you give an overview or tell everybody about the Basics Act that was recently filed and how that is something that we should be watching now?
I would have to just get back to council, and I don't have a brief in front of me on that.
That's okay. That's okay.
Can I submit that to you in writing?
That would be great. Just so everyone knows, this was filed a couple of weeks ago. The Basics Act would be an amendment for federal transportation funding, and it actually would make it easier for cities, counties, and towns to be able to access. It just streamlines the process so that we can get more money faster for streets, bridges, those kinds of infrastructure projects that are really difficult to pay for, especially if you're not a huge metropolitan area. It's gonna be a game changer for smaller cities across the country, but for cities like ours, it's gonna make a huge difference as well as far as making it those projects more efficient, where they might actually get started and finish in our lifetimes. So it is a bipartisan legislation, which is encouraging. And I actually have a Zoom meeting that starts at noon. I'm going to jump on as soon as we finish this with the National League of Cities to talk more about it. They are supporting it, as well as the Florida Association of Counties. And as a side note, I will inform everyone I'm very happy that I've been appointed once again to the National League of Cities Federal Advocacy Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure Services.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I will be traveling to DC. I think March 15th is my flight to DC for their Congressional City Conference. Rob, I'll see you there. I know David, I think you're going to. And so we'll be able to get together while I'm there that week. And I know there's going to be a big focus on this and the surface transportation reauthorization as well. Rob, I didn't know with the reauthorization, did you have anything new for us on that one?
Only that process continues in earnest. I don't think there'll be any significant floor action until the DHS funding issues are resolved. So nothing in terms of legislation really moving. But those committees continue to work on that in a as you mentioned, in a bipartisan fashion. I would expect, and I'll get you an update on where the committees jurisdiction are looking at the Basic Act in terms of its movement. I would imagine that would be something that would be folded into surface transportation reauthorization or right alongside of it. So we'll obviously, as I've talked about in the past, want to continue to watch that closely. But my expectation, just from hearing you and then looking at the summary I have in front of me now, that would likely be folded into that.
Okay, great. So then when we get to talking about the priorities and how this is all laid out, I really do want to fit that in somewhere because it's so current and it's very promising as well.
Absolutely, and I've added that to the bill tracker now.
Okay, great. And then, okay, that's all I have for now.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Yes.
Can you repeat the name of that?
Basics.
It's the Basics Act.
Basics
Yeah,
Act,
it's
okay.
I pulled
bridges
it up.
and
Yeah.
surface.
Bridges and
infrastructure.
Safety Infrastructure
Thank you.
for Community Success Act.
Thanks.
They love acronyms.
I know. Well, then once I learn it and I know what it stands for, then I only remember the
Yeah.
acronym.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Similar to that request, I would like us to keep our eyes on the SAVE Act and then the Save America Act. I guess there's two of those that are moving through. This is a, I think, issue that we should be keeping track of just to see. And so maybe at our next update in March, we can have you back to kind of talk about some of these bills and where they're going. This one, is very much geared towards voter suppression. And I will say, some of the information that I had read, one of the pieces that's most concerning is the sharing of sensitive voter data by states to the federal government. And that has already happened in the state of Florida. They have already sent all of our sensitive voter data to the federal government. So we need to be watching that and looking at that. It could have real implications to our elections here and how, organizations get out the vote. And so just want to make sure that we're watching that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you, council member, that those any of the current kind of voter election reform or reforms, not the right word, voter identification. Legislation that have been introduced really don't have any chance in the Senate right now. There has been almost no Republican support for those that would get you over the 60 vote margin in the Senate. So even if the House were to proceed on a number of those, and they might, it would likely kind of end there at the moment.
Okay, well, that is our hopes, that once again, just like Tallahassee, we depend on the Senate to be sensible. So we'll continue to watch that, but certainly very alarming for a lot of people in our community, specifically women. So just want to make sure that we are watching that. Thank you. All right, anything else? I think, kind of made up our time that we were behind from our first couple of committees today. So, David?
Yeah, just want to quickly, and then I'm kind of with Laura. I'm merging my weeks from the last time that we spoke, but I did just want to briefly go over the appropriations at the federal level that we were able to secure,
Okay.
Which is $480,000 for take-home vehicles for our police department, in partnership with PSTA, $850,000 to go towards the construction of the permanent ferry dock at the St. Pete Pier. And I know that was part of the budget, the in-town TIF discussion last week. So we look forward to those funds coming towards us. The two projects that are outstanding that are held up by the shutdown are the MLK Street south of Salt Creek storm drainage improvements and the 88th Avenue North Storm drainage improvements. So we are working to see how that will resolve itself at the federal level, but those are the outstanding projects.
Okay.
And then I do just want to add, I think we've spoken a bit before at some of these meetings, and it's on our federal agenda, some concerns about the housing and homelessness dollars that the federal government allocates and some changes to those programs. I did confirm with Administrator Foster that the language that was in the past budget alleviates the majority of those concerns, and we'll be able to move forward in a better position than we were 6 months ago, which is really great news.
Okay.
And additionally, there's been some language, we'll get some follow-up on that, about protections for Job Corps. So the closures that we were what the president prescribed or tried to implement, there's been new language that would prevent him from doing so. So we do have some progress there.
Quick question, and thank you for the update on the social funding with the NOFOs, because that was a concern. But then also with the fair, we were looking at $2.5 million and we only got $850. Is that going to seriously implicate what the city is going to contribute to the ferry, Joe?
Yeah, so I won't go as far as to speak for budget and Evan, but the way we structured the request was so that even if we didn't get full funding, it would still take up an important part of what our request was going to be. And I think that's relevant to the CIP conversation that you all have with the COW and some of the in-town TIP CRA conversations that you are having, how the remainder of that is built.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anything else, committee members? All right, very good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Rob, for being with us this morning. Thank you again, Laura and John, and we appreciate everyone's time today. With that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
We've adjourned.
Back on track.
Perfect.
District 5 is at the southern end of St. Petersburg. It's bordered by Tampa Bay to the south, Bogosiega Bay to the west, 4th Street South to the east, and as far north as 18th Avenue South. I'm Deborah Figgs Sanders, your council member for District 5, an immensely diverse district that is home to many of our city's treasures. To get in touch with nature, you can visit Maximo Park or Boyd Hill Nature Preserve to enjoy waterfront access, nature trails, all with family-friendly activities. Then there's Lake Vista's popular walking trail, playgrounds, and a dog park that encourages you to participate in a city initiative known as Healthy St. Pete. Also, education and academic excellence is important for our city. And in District 5, you will find 3 of Pinellas County Schools' finest in Bay Point Elementary, Bay Point Middle, and Lakewood High School. Not to mention the mighty Tritons of Eckerd College, a liberal arts waterfront campus which sits on the Gulf Peninsula of Florida's west coast. District 5 is a diverse makeup of cultures, communities, and socioeconomics that can be seen throughout our neighborhoods. Lake McGorry Shores offers a sense of community, or the pink streets in the Pinellas Point neighborhood that are a unique feature not seen anywhere else in the city. Our growing economy, friendly residents, and beautiful coastline showcases our best about living in St. Petersburg. We are here at a groundbreaking that's going to provide over 40 units for our residents to be able to provide shelter and a safe place for their families. We're adding to the housing stock. We're actually trying to uphold the commitment that the mayor has set for the city of St. Petersburg to provide more affordable housing units, and this is one of the great steps toward that accomplishment.
It's the second project with Habitat for home ownership and multifamily here in the city of St. Petersburg, and it's at the southern end of the Deuces. So I think it's important as we see that transformation happening in the Deuces and in South St. Pete, that we have a project that folks that live here can afford, that 80% AMI and less, some as low as 30%, will be able to get into home ownership through the Great Habitat program right here on the Deuces.
Projects like this are important to the city because when you are creating housing and the opportunity to own the housing at 0% down with 0% interest, that is a tool in the financial universe that we call the unicorn. It doesn't exist. And so when we're able to create this with partners like Habitat for Humanity, you got to celebrate it and you got to let people know.
This moment represents more than just the start of construction. It's the beginning of new opportunities, stronger communities, and brighter futures. St. Petersburg is a city that thrives on diversity, resilience, and community spirit. Pelican Place will reflect those values. It will be a neighborhood where children can play safely, where families can grow, and where neighbors support one another.
Everything that we see being built will not be unaffordable. We will have an affordable base, and that's what the Housing Opportunities for All is focused on. This will remain a priority for our administration, and we know how important it is, and we're dedicated to it.
Hi, I'm Mike Perry from the Stormwater Pavement Traffic Ops Department. I'm the Senior Stormwater Operations Manager, and I'm here to talk about floodwaters. First and foremost, here's what the city does to get ready for wet weather events. Our department sends out street sweepers in low-lying areas to get rid of debris on the streets. We also have special crews that do stormwater inspections to make sure our stormwater systems and the conveyances are clear, including our pipes and our ditches. We do have our sandbag operations mobilized citywide, and where we can, we also pump down lakes to provide storage in the community to get ready for any extreme weather. Should you encounter any floodwaters, do not walk through that area or try and drive through that area for safety reasons. You are the eyes and ears of the community, but please do let us know either through calling the service center or using C-Click Fix on your phone so that we can prioritize that work.
So if you live in St. Petersburg, right, most people know that the world's first commercial airline flight was here.
True.
Right, from St. Petersburg to Tampa. But what a lot of people don't know, could have been disastrous for the whole idea of the whole airline business, the chain came off the sprocket. The engine was basically powering a propeller like a bicycle chain on a bicycle sprocket that turned the propeller. And halfway across the bay, the chain came off. And he had to land the airboat in the middle of Tampa Bay and repair it. Remember when you were a kid and your chain would come off and you have to put it back on, your hands would get all greasy and dirty? Well, him and AC File both had to do that, and they both got their hands all filthy and stuff, but they put it back in the air and they made it. That could have been game-changing for the whole airline industry if the flight didn't work.
If they'd had to come rescue these guys out in the middle of Tampa Bay after all this publicity.
That's exactly right.
Oh, my goodness.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Just brushing up on some of my favorite literary classics. Even if a page turner like this isn't up your alley, did you know our libraries offer so much more than classic books? There's also things like passes to local museums. You can download ebooks onto your Kindle device. And super cool things like a teen gaming program. Visit your local library and see all it has to offer.
The new Minority and Women Business Enterprise Program, referred to as the MWBE program, aims to promote business and economic development for minority-owned business enterprises and women-owned business enterprises in the St. Pete area. Equity and business opportunities are key priorities in Mayor Ken Welch and his team's agenda, and one of his 5 pillars for progress. The MWBE will be administered by the City of St. Petersburg's Office of Supplier Diversity, created to promote fair and equal business opportunities, ensuring equity in contracts and procurement for all members of our community who want to do business with the City of St. Petersburg. The city awards millions of dollars in contracts each year for services, supplies, and construction, which results in the creation of a wide variety of opportunities. The new MWBE program will create participation percentage requirements, providing more opportunities for St. Pete's diverse business community. For more information on qualifications, eligibility, and how to apply, visit stpete.org/MWBE.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Reale. I'm chairman of the Development Review Commission. I'll be presiding over the hearing today. Can you hear me? I can't hear me. Yeah. I can hear.
Red light is.
Well, I'll try getting closer. What's that?
Project.
Yeah. The Development Review Commission is a voluntary group of citizens appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. The commissioner is responsible for considering requests including special exceptions, site plan approvals, variances, reinstatements, redevelopments, and street vacations. Copies of today's agenda are available at the podium to my right, your left. Certain proceedings on today's agenda are quasi-judicial, meaning that all parties will have a chance to present evidence and testimony to assist the commission in making its decision. If you have questions regarding the quasi-judicial procedures, there's a guide available from the clerk at the center console. All persons who plan to provide testimony today will be required to take an oath prior to speaking. Anyone speaking before the commission on a quasi-judicial item must fill out a blue card and will be sworn in by the clerk prior to speaking. A representative for a group or organization may be designated, but the representative will only be allowed 3 minutes. The pooling of time is not permitted. For each quasi-judicial case on today's agenda, a presentation will be made to the commission by a representative from the city administration. Staff, the applicant, and any registered opponent will each have 10 minutes for their presentation. Following presentations, all persons in attendance who have filled out a blue card located on the podium will be given 3 minutes to speak. If you have filled out a card, you will be called by name and asked to approach the podium. All statements, questions, or testimony must be stated in front of a microphone located at either podium to ensure that all audio is recorded for the record. When addressing the commission, please begin with your name, address, and confirm you've been sworn. Once members of the public have had a chance to speak, cross-examination will begin. During the cross-examination phase of the proceedings, city administration, the registered opposition, if any, and the applicant will each have 5 minutes to ask questions of witnesses. Questions should be directed to me as chair. I will redirect the questions to the appropriate party for a response. Following cross-examination, rebuttal and closing statements begin. During this phase of the proceedings, city administration, the registered opposition, if any, and the applicant will each have 5 minutes to provide rebuttal and closing statements. If there is no registered opponent, any person who wishes to be a registered opponent may register as a registered opponent with the DRC clerk prior to the beginning of the initial presentation of that case and may participate in the limited purpose of cross-examination and rebuttal closing statement phases of the hearing. If more than one person wishes to utilize the time for the opponent, the opposition must select one representative to present their case. After rebuttal and closing statements, the public hearing will be closed and the commission will go into executive session. The commission may ask questions of the applicant or the public at any time during the proceedings. All motions of the commission are made in an affirmative manner with a quorum of 5 or more commission members. It takes 4 concurring votes of the commission for any motion to pass. Once the commission has voted on your item, we ask that you continue any conversations outside of weather permits. This will allow us to move forward with your fellow St. Petersburg citizens DRC matters. Thank you for your cooperation. Finally, please silence all cell phones and similar devices, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Kiernan. Black. Reale.
Here.
Flynn.
Here.
Lemons.
Here.
Griner.
Here.
Conroy.
Here.
Badalow.
Here.
Hugglestone.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, regarding the minutes from the February 4th meeting, if anyone has any changes, or if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval. Second.
Reale.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Lemons. Yes. Griner.
Yes.
Conroy,
Yes.
Battle
Yes.
Huddleston.
Yes.
Minutes pass.
We have one deferred case on the agenda. I'll just read it into the record. Case number 2531000012 for property at 4500 54th Avenue South is deferred to April 1st, 2026. That meeting will be at 1 p.m. So if you're here for that item, it will not be heard today. All right. The first of our items here is legislative, LDR text changes for Sunrunner.
Okay. Chair Commission, good morning. Thank you. Derek Kilborn, Planning Director. Okay, this presentation will look similar to some of you who were here at the DRC workshop, but there are some changes that we've incorporated in, and given the brevity of the workshop session, I'll just go through and give you the full presentation. You don't see them often, but as this commission knows, sometimes when there are text amendments proposed to the Development Review Commission, those text amendments, when text amendments are proposed for the land development regulations, they are required to come to this commission, the Development Review Commission, for public hearing. And then you are asked to make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan that then becomes a commission recommendation to the city council. So we're doing a couple things with the discussion today. First, as you are maybe discussing specific points, I'll be taking notes because I can include those discussion points in our city council memo that we then later prepare and provide to city council. And then second, you'll have your discussion and action to make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan, or not. Okay, what I want to open with is going back to 2012, starting with the Central Avenue Revitalization Plan. At that time, St. Petersburg was having a conversation about bus rapid transit looping along the First Avenues and Central Avenue. And so in anticipation of applying for federal grants and pursuing then engineering plans and developing a program for that, we worked through the Central Avenue Revitalization Plan to make some changes to land use and zoning along the corridor, showing the codependency of land use and transportation to strengthen those applications. When we were then going forward asking for grant applications, and we were able to demonstrate that we've already put into place land use and zoning to support bus rapid transit, it really helped our application and those requests at that time. Following publication of the revitalization plan, we then implemented the Central Avenue Activity Center, and you can see in the column here to the right that at that time, density along the corridor was increased to 60 units an acre, plus 10 units workforce housing bonus for a total of 70 units per acre. And the building height at that time was increased to 72 feet. Later in 2019, there was the Union Central District Plan that focused on the intersection of 34th Street and Central Avenue. For those of you who've been at this for a long time, recognize that as the Central Plaza Activity Center. And you can see in the master plan, there were a series of recommendations. I've clipped this map here to show you that the dark red color was identified as transit scale. And that is important because that underlies what came after in the Sunrunner Rising Development Study and later changes that we made to the activity center descriptions in the comp plan. In 2022, the Sunrunner Rising Development Study was conducted to look back to the 2012 Central Avenue Revitalization Plan, evaluate where the community was and whether there were additional opportunities or changes needed to further support the bus rapid transit system, which opened later that year in October of 2022. Shortly after that, in 2023, the city and the Grand Central Business District was working through a Grand Central District master plan that has additional information that could support your conversation, and I think you'll hear some of that in the public comment portion. Also, in 2023, our office initiated and adopted the NTM1 missing middle zoning category, which you can see is along some of the parcels adjacent to the bus rapid transit corridor along the First Avenues. And then finally, in 2024, most of you are familiar with the Sunrunner Target Employment Center local overlay, which was essentially a bus rapid transit station area plan for the 22nd Street location. And at that time, substantial and significant changes were made to accommodate the introduction of multifamily, other tools and resources to help create a more complete neighborhood, but most importantly, support the transit-oriented activity at that 22nd Street station. And that leads up to where we are right now with this proposed text amendment to the parcels located within the Sunrunner BRT Activity Center. This is an existing activity center along Central Avenue Spine, and you'll see that in some of the following maps. One thing that I think is really important to start out with is in the Sunrunner Rising Development Study, they had recommended the identification of 4 station or place types, which you can see distributed here on the screen: downtown, urban, village, and neighborhood. Now, the geographic footprint of what we're considering today is not the entire BRT corridor, but it does run from the Interstate 275 out to Pasadena Avenue. And so in that run, you can see that there are several urban stations, neighborhood stations through the middle, and then a village station out at 66th Street. And as you kind of zoom in and you move down that corridor, these parcel maps will show you how the recommendations will apply to that geographic area. So starting at 18th Street or the Interstate 275 overpass, you have the urban station. And when you go out from the urban stations 1/4 mile, that would be represented by the hatched mark inside that solid black line. It identifies the qualified parcels as light blue, being 1/4 mile from that urban station. And I'd want to emphasize that this consideration, these text amendments apply only within that heavy black line that you see, boundary line that you see on the map. It does not extend outside of that line, but the hatched line does represent that 1/4 mile. So just kind of moving through the corridor, you can see this is, again, an urban station at 32nd Street and Central Avenue. As you move through the middle section, this is the 40th Street location, 49th Street, and 58th Street location. All 3 of those are neighborhood stations. And then finally, the village station at 66th Street. So what we are bringing to you today is a new transit-oriented development overlay section that will be introduced into Chapter 16, the city's land development regulations. And we talked about this at the workshop, but one of the reasons that we are proposing an overlay at this time is because there have been a series of actions and state preemptions that have complicated our ability to implement TOD changes when we have certain state legislation that prohibits us from doing land development changes that are interpreted as being more restrictive or burdensome is the legal term. And following the storms in 2024, there were a set of legislative actions taken that prevent local municipalities from making these types of land use changes. And that's applicable to this process because one of the things that we had talked about doing was rezoning the corridor to a traditional pedestrian-oriented category. But if we were to do that at this time, we would be in violation of state law because at intersections like 58th Street, we have CCS1 zoning, corridor commercial suburban, which allows gas or fueling stations and drive-through windows. By going to a traditional zoning, those would no longer be allowed, and that type of change would be deemed more restrictive or burdensome, and so that really complicated our ability to address this through rezoning at this time. So we are proposing an overlay. This is a alternative development option in addition to the existing underlying zoning. So property owners today will retain all development rights that they currently have under the existing zoning, or they can opt into this alternative overlay. And on this slide here, of course, in the text amendment, we only have one overlay proposed, the Sunrunner BRT overlay. But I tried to highlight that as we move forward, this is the section of the code where we would be able to add future TOD corridors as those might come online. So we have the Spark BRT that runs down 34th Street South. We also have a master plan that looked at Alt 19 near Tyrone Boulevard for possible bus rapid transit. So if those plans develop in the future, we can incorporate them into this section of the code. So we've tried to be forward thinking in terms of the framework here to absorb new changes in the future as well. This slide just shows you the organization of the text amendment that is proposed and how it's laid out. I've already talked to you about the overlay being a voluntary opt-in option. The other thing that will help here is the overlay is flexible. So because it is station-based, if the bus rapid transit system adds a new bus station location, or they take a station out, this text can flex with whatever changes are proposed in the future. Okay, the next thing you'll see in the text is a list of permitted uses and a list of prohibited uses. So when we presented to you at the workshop, we identified a sentence that allows all uses currently permitted in the zoning category would be allowed by right. But one thing that we did not address the last time was that there are certain uses currently allowed by right that are not compatible with the transit-oriented development overlay section. So we needed to explicitly identify what those are and prohibit those as uses that would not be allowed in the TOD overlay if the property owner chooses the TOD overlay. So in the text, you'll see we have listed those on the screen, and those are the types of uses that are allowed today that if we tried to regulate through a rezoning would have made it difficult for us and prohibited. Okay, another thing that's very important is to allow for TOD supportive uses. This is a strategy that we used on the 22nd Street corridor where we had a list of target employment center supportive uses. Similarly here, there are TOD supportive uses. These are uses that are not allowed in the underlying zoning, but would be allowed in the TOD overlay because they are supporting those TOD best practices, especially near those station locations. In our discussion with this commission and our discussion with the Community Planning and Preservation Commission and a little bit with the Housing, Land Use, and Transportation Committee, there was some question about laboratories and research and development, manufacturing, light assembly, and processing. So these are pretty comprehensive descriptions. We included them here because they do include neighborhood scale employment, office type uses, that maybe don't fit under the normal office definition. We've put them in here. We think that these would be complementary uses, but we can come back and kind of talk through this particular issue if you have additional questions about it. Okay, the next thing that we need to identify in the text are development intensities. So these are based on the urban station type. And you can see on this slide, the urban stations are depicted in the graphic. And then the graphic on the lower left side is showing you a clip from the Sunrunner Rising Development Study, and it is showing you the maximum recommendation that was in that study. That study's recommendation also became the special area plan that is required for us to adopt in order to pursue these text amendments. So that 5.0 FAR is the maximum cap that we can do based on the Sunrunner Rising Development Study and the preliminary work that's already been completed. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are recommending a maximum floor area ratio of 5.0. There is a base floor area ratio of 4.0 and a 1.0 bonus to get you to that 5.0 cap. As you move through the neighborhood station types, right now there is a density, under the existing zoning, there's a density cap and there's a floor area ratio cap. We are recommending that we do not regulate by density through this overlay. We only regulate through FAR. The current FAR is 2.5. We are recommending, consistent with the Sunrunner Rising study, you can see there a maximum cap of 3.0. We are recommending a cap of 3.0. In this case, 3.0 is a lower FAR number, so we are not recommending any bonus associated with these station locations. It would just be a 3.0 cap. And then finally, the village station type. On the west end, the Sunrunner Rising Development Study had a maximum recommendation of 4.0. Again, we are recommending 3.0 base, 1.0 bonus, maximum 4.0, consistent with that study. And then finally, you have these parcels in between. What do you do with the parcels between the station locations? Those are represented on this graphic here. And again, the existing floor area ratio is 2.5. We are recommending a 0.5 bonus to get to a 3.0 for those parcels in between. The FAR bonuses. These are bonuses consistent with recommendations that already exist in the downtown center or the 22nd Street Target Employment Center local overlay. Initially, we did not have the historic preservation TDR option in here, but it was recommended through the different conversations, and so that has been added as a proposed bonus. And then in the streetscape design and street frontage section, we have added additional bonuses for developments that finish out that first floor space for immediate occupancy by a tenant. So this was something that was very important in the 22nd Street station location because we had an existing and established stable arts community working there, and we were trying to make sure we were protecting opportunities for continued artist storefronts and other creative type businesses to locate on those streets and in those projects. Previously, there was, in the first round in draft, there was a recommendation for affordable commercial space program, which you see in the downtown center. That program has been identified and described previously, but it is not officially active. And so there was recommendations at the HLUT committee meeting that we take that option out. And so that's what we've done. Next section is building height. The corridor currently allows up to 72 feet in height, and that came from the Central Avenue revitalization plan. Admittedly, I think it was based in part on some misunderstanding for us on how the Florida Building Code is interpreted when it comes to that top floor. So for people who don't know, the Florida Building Code regulates low-rise and high-rise buildings, and there's a threshold that distinguishes how that definition is applied. And we wanted to make sure that we are correcting the building height here to be consistent with the Florida Building Code, because the Florida Building Code dimension is to the floor of the highest occupied space and not the overall height of the building. You can see graphically, we're trying to show how the old rule on the left would be interpreted with the code change here on the right. So the building height, by increasing it from 72 to 86 feet, we are coming into conformance with how the Florida Building Code defines those two building types. In the Central Plaza Activity Center, which is now part of the Sunrunner BRT Activity Center, you can see that the Sunrunner Rising Development Study had a recommended maximum height of 12 stories. And so in that particular section, we have identified this additional height of 150 feet. And I included this picture of the Elements building to show you that there are several buildings that are close to this particular height in that location already. The Central Avenue Revitalization Plan does include some building setback requirements, and a couple of the changes that you see in this package that vary slightly from the existing rules relate to the base podium height increasing up to 50 feet. So it's a slight increase from the current rule. You also have a setback above that base, and so you can see there's a 20-foot current setback to the First Avenues. Our recommendation here is that that change from 20 feet to 10 feet. In this particular corridor, they are more shallow parcels, and this will get us closer to how the downtown center is currently interpreted, where that podium becomes the tower. And then finally, there's a setback standard at grade to make sure that there is a sufficient sidewalk space from the back of curb to the building. This is a transit-oriented development plan, and so we want to make sure we have sufficient space to accommodate pedestrian activity and other related support services like sidewalk cafes, for example. Okay, another key area of consideration, and this is an area that we have received, you saw in the staff report, the highest volume of public comments. Almost all the public comments we've received relate to parking. The recommendation from city staff is to have a zero minimum parking requirement within 1/4 mile of the station locations, and that is identified in orange on the plan. The remaining parcels identified in blue, the gaps in between, would use a downtown center parking standard. So it is the lowest parking minimums we have in the city, but it is not zero. We have received, through most of the public comments, requests to go to zero parking within the entire activity center boundary, and some of the public comments additionally requested zero parking outside the boundary of the activity center, but still within 1/4 mile. So we can come back and talk about that. And then finally, design standards. These are typical for all of St. Petersburg zoning categories. In this case, we have a ground level activation requirement to make sure that on the Central Avenue frontages and on the north-south streets between the stations, that you have activated storefronts. Or I'll say activated frontages, because one of the other things that the language says is when you have that 60% linear requirement, if you have individual multifamily units that exit to the right-of-way in that sidewalk, and they have primary entrances to those units, then that building is outward facing, it's activated, and that would count towards the 60% requirement. Some of the multifamily projects that are more internal, where you go through a collective lobby, that would not count as that 60%. Okay, finally, what is it you're being asked to do today? You're being asked to make a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan. So understanding those proposed text amendments and relating it to the comprehensive plan. In the report, we had 32 goals, objectives, and policies identified, primarily from the future land use element, transportation element, and housing element. I think you're also going to hear some information in public comments about the historic preservation element, and so we can come back and answer questions about that as well. The key ones that I put into the slide presentation talk specifically to bus rapid transit or efforts along these activity center locations, or they explicitly identify Sunrunner and the Sunrunner Rising Development Study. Finally, in terms of resources, we have been maintaining a dedicated website for this project, not only for this text amendment, but going back several years, because we have gone through different comprehensive plan text amendments, related map amendments already to get to this point. Those are all cataloged on this website. So anybody that is interested in continuing to follow this application through the process can go to stpete.org/sunrunnertod and receive all the real-time updates. There's also an interactive map, so individuals can use the interactive map to see how their parcels might relate to the recommendations that are here. When you click on parcels in the interactive map, it will include additional information to help explain what is being proposed. Schedule. You can see we had our 2 workshops, our Housing, Land Use, Transportation Committee. We're at the DRC public hearing now. Going forward, April 16th, City Council first reading and first public hearing. May 14th, City Council second reading, adoption, public hearing. Normally we will go first and third Thursday of the month. In this case, we padded a little extra time in the schedule so that if there are changes requested from City Council in April, we can then incorporate those in time for the May 14 date. Finally, just kind of talk a little bit about the public process here. We've had the website. We're